I think that China is really facing a lot of innovation issues. The government actually is planning to build an innovative country by 2020, and China has actually proposed innovation as a national strategy recently. And of course, also talent as a strategy to revitalize China. As you probably know, China has about 200 million migrant workers. That was made in China. It happened in the last number of years. Now, China trying to become to have this 200 million future college graduates that among the Chinese population to be the really innovative forces. So how to become really training those innovative forces? It's really a big challenge for China.
Twitter, like many companies in Silicon Valley, tried initially to pull away from that old Google model that Dr. Tony Wagner was telling us about, where people had to come from certain pedigree universities in order to even get an interview. And so early on, the Twitter co-founders, some of them, well, none of them went to fancy universities, and some of them didn't finish university. So they were very passionate about this idea of looking for alternative candidates. Unfortunately, at Twitter, as happens at many startups, when you become a large corporation, companies can't figure out how to scale that model. And so they end up sort of receding back to these old resumes and the old pedigree universities being things that really pull people out of the pile and get them interviews in a fast-tracking basis.
The role models that are perpetuated throughout the education system in Kuwait, which is pretty much, I think, status quo through the region, are pretty much historical religious figures. And of course, they never made mistakes, at least the book says so. And so what you have is this reinforcement of the idea of, real men or real women don't make mistakes. And so what happens is that people are that much less likely to go off and venture for fear of, because we are a shame-based society. It's very group-oriented. And so one of the challenges, I think, for people who are in your positions as ministers of education, trying to overcome the resistance and rewriting the stories. I mean, I think the stories of the people we have as role models are absolutely fascinating role models. I just think that there's twists to those stories to make them more human, to have people be able to, he reached that high level, but here are the mistakes he made along the way. Here are the bad decisions. Here's what he learned. And I think that can go a long way in terms of rewriting the story and helping kids take that step and failing.
Also, I think it's more important is the care, is the compassion for failure. For example, in China, I just said we have 200 million migrant workers, and they have 15 million children left behind in the rural areas. So they need the care, and they need the attention, and they need the encouragement. And that's really the key for the success of achievement.
A child in a low-income country and a child in a developed country has the same potential, is the same child. The difference is the opportunities which one child has and the other child doesn't have. So it's not, so it's not a question of whether you are here or there. 3 days ago, I was in Uganda. And I visited one of the slums where there is a very small training center for young women who are mothers already. They don't have much of education, but they are being supported to, one, to improve a little bit of education, one, to develop skills. And then they had a dream wall, and in which every one of them would say what they would like to achieve. I cried when I read that dream wall. One of them was saying, I want to own a business and be the managing director of my business. It is a girl who is 16, as I said. She is already a mother. She hardly can read and write, but she's being given an opportunity to think beyond her daily circumstances and to be able to know what she would. And I believe, I said to the lady, I said, we have to follow these children. We have to make sure that we create the opportunities for them. As she says, yes, to own a business. And so the dreams, what I want to say is that the dreams of a girl in circumstances of challenge like this are not different of the dreams of a girl who can be in a better position.
So far, the discussion seems to be still in the economic narrative. It seems that innovations and creativity is basically for jobs, for employment, for production. But human lives are far more than that. We have our family lives, we have our cultural lives, political lives, religious lives, and all those. Does innovation apply to them as well?
Okay, Claire, you look really keen to just say something.
I want to weigh in. There's a phrase, you know, we are human beings, we aren't human doings, that is big in Silicon Valley. And in Silicon Valley, sort of the way that we try to address this work-life balance thing is by bringing in things into the workplace, right? Meditation rooms, yoga rooms, things like that. It's amazing, but it doesn't go far enough at all. What we really need to be doing is saying, go home and find that.
I've recently graduated from a Bachelor's of Early Childhood, and I'm currently teaching in an international preschool. And as a teacher, I was trained by an American institution to you know, integrate creativity as a huge part of the curriculum. But I also face a lot of feedback or questions or doubts from parents. Now, it's a systematic way of thinking, and how do we as teachers, of how do ministers or people from the from a higher authority help parents understand that this is a crucial, creativity is an imperative for their child's growth?
In my 3 years as an education minister in my country, it felt like teachers were suspicious of change, parents were suspicious of politicians trying to lead change, and the great British newspapers like the Daily Mail were the dragging anchor on any kind of progress at all. How does that compare to your time as an education minister in Mozambique and then the leadership you've shown in the years since? What's the key to leading public opinion and especially parental opinion to embrace this sort of change we're talking about?
I think we tried. We did not succeed, but we tried to even create a connection between what we call the school, the community, and the parents. When I say community, we were talking about community leaders, but parents, and even to encourage to have days in which parents would be interacting with teachers, because that's correct. I mean, a child can be 5, 6, or 8 hours at school and then goes back home. These two worlds have to communicate, have to make sure that they synchronize somehow the interest of supporting this young life, I mean, to unleash, as we are talking about, the potential.
I found that cultural integration and also exchanges are very important. For example, China has about 3 or 4 million students going abroad. And then when they come back, when they have this international education and the cultural difference immersion, when they come back and then they study the internet, they study high tech, they study all kinds of stuff. So creativity is not that everybody can do, but if you expose to a creative culture, as much as you can, then you can become very creative.
One of the things that kind of struck me in today's keynote was this idea of passion, and that's something that I really, you know, I have a son that's passionate about football, one that's passionate about basketball, one that's passionate about bugs. I mean, he's just the bugs, and for me, I see the importance of that. I mean, growing up, I was passionate about the Beatles. Why, I don't know. I mean, they were already disbanded. But I think when you're passionate about something and your parents nurture it, it can lead to things in the future.
When I was applying to university, all the rage was, it was all the rage to be good at everything, right? To be well-rounded. And we've completely shifted away from that. And as Sir Ken Robinson says in The Element, it's all about finding what you're really good at. So pursue that one thing where you can put all your creativity into it and get really good at that. And that's how you can get a job anywhere you want or create the business you want. It's to be really good at the thing that you're meant to do.
In talking about revolution, I mean, what we're missing out on is, okay, you have the revolution, you change the education system, who's going to teach?
Yeah.
Because you can't have the same teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So so one way to kind of do it is to train teachers in that way, and you can have both systems in place. Parents who are happy with this system, use that.
I think we have to understand that a radical change does not happen at the pace of how society, the dynamics of society work. So I think we need to engage parents, acknowledging that some sort of resistance will exist along the way, but if we are very clear that the change we are looking for is dictated because the world itself has changed. So we have no choice except to support our children to achieve a level in which they are in tune in the world they live in. Yep. And that's where creativity comes in.